welcome back to another edition of the Bill Houston podcast. And we are very lucky today to have a couple guests in the studio. And let me see if I can give you a shot of our two guests. Hey there. So we have Laura Dagley and Tammy Murphy, and both are from Physicians for Social Responsibility. Is that right? And let me turn your... Okay, say something.
Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Tammy.
Good. I just wanted to get some levels on you. Very good. So
yesterday we were actually in Lancaster, at Lancaster General Hospital, giving a presentation for, I guess it's called a morning rounds or morning report. So we were just speaking to some of the hospital residents about the health impacts of fracking. So I say the health impacts of fracking, but I mean the health impacts of unconventional gas development, the whole process, including pipelines, which they are dealing with a proposed pipeline in Lancaster, so that might have been one of the reasons that they invited us. Since we were there, and Laura's an RN, so she's kind of better at the medical aspect of some of the things. My background is law and social movements. So Laura was out here on the eastern half of Pennsylvania, and I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to come up here because I know that people have been dealing with the health impacts of fracking, but unable to have the nurses and doctors that they are seeing are not registering their illnesses into the EHP Health Registry.
you both came originally from the Environmental Health Project. Mm-hmm. So let's begin there and talk about what's the Environmental Health Project and what did you do there?
So the Environmental Health Project, they're based just outside of Pittsburgh in southwestern PA, and they're really there as a resource for people who think that their health is affected by fracking. And, they were sort of created out of necessity because there's a lot of, and I'm just using, again, like the word fracking as a coverall for all oil and gas development. But so if somebody thinks that their health might be affected, they provide air monitors, they can help with water monitoring, and they also do health assessments and just provide general information on things that they should be looking out for, things they can do to help protect themselves. And they do a lot of data collection with all of that. So what they just recently started was this health registry, and I don't know if you want me to talk about that now.
Sure. What's the intent of the registry? Who contributes to it? What's the purpose of it? Who's supposed to use it?
Yeah, so they were seeing, a lot of health symptoms of people who were coming to them. So they wanted to create this health registry so you can really capture all that data on a larger scale and see patterns. So researchers could have access to that because there are people who are sick, but the information isn't all in one place. It's spread out. And the state wasn't doing it. So they created this registry where individuals can go in and put in their information, answer a bunch of questions about their health, and then that information is available to researchers and scientists who want to see patterns of people living closer to certain, like drilling sites or having more of the same symptoms.
Who is eligible to contribute to the registry?
They want the people filling them out to be at least 18 years old, and anyone who lives within 5 miles should definitely be filling it out. 5
miles of
any kind of oil and gas activity. And adults can fill it out for kids under 18, but they want that person actually filling it out to be at least 18.
So the idea is to build this registry and to basically collect this information in order to assist health professionals and maybe researchers to try to what?
To see the bigger picture, I think. So each individual person only can tell about what they experience, maybe their friends and family that they know. But then a researcher wants to see, across the state, all these different people who live near compressor stations are experiencing this, and all of these different people that are living near storage facilities are experiencing this, or maybe the ones in this area are experiencing this and somebody else over here is experiencing that, and they're different. Like, we don't know if they're the same or different, but that's for them to find out, and they'll be able to see the bigger picture where we might only know what our neighbors are experiencing.
And how long have you been with PSR?
We had a joint grant with them last year, so we were kind of with PSR and EHP together. We had a partnership for a year, and now we've been with, Laura and I have been with PSR for half of a year.
So you've been doing this work jointly with these two organizations for at least a year?
Year and a half or
Year and
so,
a half.
yeah.
Year and a half, okay. And so from what you've seen, are you personally or is your organization advocating for a ban, and why?
PSR has definitely called for a ban. Why? Because it's toxic.
There's definite patterns that are seen. I mean, just from what's been happening in southwestern Pennsylvania, there are definitely patterns of symptoms, and there's a lot of research out there. You know, there's hundreds of studies that are done, and just in the past couple years. So the research definitely shows, like, at the very least, that there should be like a precautionary principle applied, like that there is enough evidence that people are having like detrimental health effects that there should be a hold on further fracking activity.
So how would you define the precautionary for like somebody that's not a scientist? How would you state what the precautionary principle is?
I guess if you are seeing that there's correlation and causation. So you could say, like, there's this one thing that's happening, and when this one thing happens, we see this other thing happen. And you don't necessarily know if it's causing it, but you're seeing that it's happening at the same time. So you would want to stop doing the first thing to prevent the second, until you can figure out for sure if it's causing the second thing, just to be safe. Because I mean, you're talking about people's health too. We're not just, talking about something flippant. It's people's health. So you want to definitely stop the thing that's you think is possibly causing the health effects until you can definitely say that it's not going to do that.
So you're up here, you're in Susquehanna County, and you're interviewing people. I know you can't discuss, who or what their symptoms are specifically. In general terms, can you describe what you've been seeing in this recent trip?
I mean, one of the things that I think people don't, they often don't, I guess, they don't legitimize that it's a serious thing, but almost everybody is talking about their stress symptoms. They're feeling exhausted. They're not getting enough sleep. They're not getting their usual amount of sleep. Lights and noise are waking them up. They're feeling headaches, anxiety. I guess like some level of fear, or in some cases like other emotions like anger and just stress. It's like in general, it's really just stress. And then, like, I can't say what's causing it, but they're also then saying like increase in headaches, increase in other pains that they're experiencing or other health impacts that they're experiencing. And I think that it's probably related. I mean, if you're kind of prone to getting migraines, or you could, that's something that might happen to you, and then all of a sudden there's really bright lights and noise and other things. They're kind of triggers for some of those symptoms. So I think that's
something to add.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that at least in southwestern PA, that a lot of what they see too is upper respiratory symptoms are probably the number one, and then neurologic symptoms like headache, dizziness. And I mean, they've seen everything though, from like rashes to stomach issues, just kind of all over the place. But upper respiratory is the number one complaint, I think, is a lot of these chemicals, when you're exposed to them in a short term, like a short time period, like the first symptom you're going to feel is upper respiratory, and the other symptoms kind of come after a longer time period of exposure.
Now, would you say you're personally advocating for a ban? PSR is advocating for a ban.
Yeah, and personally as well. And the Pennsylvania Medical Society has actually called for a moratorium.
This is based on the data that you've seen, right? Yeah.
And I think PSR is motivated also, they look at other issues besides this, and climate change is a big issue for them, and methane is released at every point in the process of the industry. So from the drilling all the way to like the end user product at a power plant, among other things, methane is released at every point. So for an organization like Physicians for Social Responsibility that is looking at like nuclear weapons, non-proliferation, disarmament issues on one hand, and then on the other hand, they're looking at environmental health issues in a broad perspective. People have often seen fracking as a bridge fuel. That's the way it's been described often, as if it's like better than coal. And it's in its lifespan, it's not better. It's different. It has like a different. Has a different effect on the environment, but it's not necessarily better. So that concept that it's better is sort of a myth or something that people at least initially believed. And PSR is basically calling it out and saying no, because of the methane that is part of not just the extraction process, but the entire process.
Now, what I hear the gas industry saying is things like, because of the switch from coal to natural gas, CO2 emissions have drastically dropped. What would you say to that?
That's not true.
Well, but also methane is a potent climate change. It's worse in the short term. Like CO2 is bad if we're looking out 20 years. In the short term, methane has like times the effect of CO2 on the atmosphere.
So it's kind of like a straw man, right? Where they say, "Oh, CO2 emissions have dropped." Yeah, okay, maybe that's true, but methane is much worse on the climate.
And in the long term.
Right.
So I think I said it's not true because if you look at the whole picture, it's just not better. So they're trying to paint, they're trying to sell it to you like, oh, this is such a better thing for our environment. And it's like, I mean, it's just not.
So you're going out and you're talking to people and you're collecting data. Yeah. A lot of the people around here are under various kinds of gag orders, non-disclosure agreements, in order to take settlements or to get supplied with clean drinking water, non-disparagement clauses. Are these gag orders impacting your ability to collect data?
Well, I haven't encountered directly that I'm aware of if someone has a gag order, but I know that people know about them, and so maybe people who don't even have a gag order, that is affecting them wanting to even talk about it themselves. There's like a general, it's like a scare tactic, and I think that it's working in that sense, and that's very frustrating because we're talking about people's health, and that they're afraid to talk about symptoms or things that are going on.
And in the short time that we're here, we have, just worked with different community members to introduce us to people that can talk. So we're not trying to get people who are unable to or would jeopardize them in any way to talk. We're just, in a large part, I'm just trying to get to know the community here and what people are dealing with. Our main goal really is to organize medical professionals around this issue and to galvanize them to become advocates around this issue, to speak about the health impacts. There was a gag order as part of Act 13
on health professionals,
right? And it was a very limited, very focused. It restricted, say a doctor from reporting that this patient who might live near this drill site is experiencing this, and they're naming a chemical that they think is part of what's causing their illness. That is a very specific thing that they were not allowed to name a chemical, and it was considered like an industry secret, like the ingredients of Coke and Pepsi. I mean, it's absurd, really. And the Supreme Court, shut it down and considered it unconstitutional. So it's not. active anymore. But like Laura said, it just puts a chill on the whole profession to think that they're not allowed to talk about fracking at all. Most people didn't realize how focused that was. Specifically naming a particular chemical that is affecting a particular patient that might come from this site, which would give away a supposed industry secret. That's how narrow it was, but the effect overall was that people were just scared to talk about it. And it's controversial, like they may or may not have leased their land, their patients may or may not have leased their land, they may or may not be sick, and their patients may or may not be sick from these things, and we don't know the causality or just correlation of things, but talking about it has become this taboo thing, and we're basically trying to get people to who understand the science behind this and who understand what their patients are dealing with to talk about it. If they're seeing a sort of skyrocketing number of sinus issues, they should talk about that. We should hear about that. So if an agency like your township is planning to allow something to be built in the industry, or to allow the industry into the community, the health professionals should say that in other communities they've seen these things. We should be able to talk about the health impacts, the potential health impacts. So this is kind of what we try to get people to do, is to speak out about it, whether that's letters to the editors, op-eds, giving testimony, speaking at public hearings.
So part of your work is to actually try to convince medical professionals to become advocates?
That's mostly what we do. That's the main thing that we do. Now, in this community, I have heard repeatedly, in Susquehanna County that people leave the county to get their issues taken care of. They leave the state, actually, and they'll go to New York to take care of their health issues because they're not being addressed. And they're definitely not being acknowledged as something that is impacting them from the industry. So that's not being acknowledged. In a lot of cases, it's being ignored. So because I've heard this repeatedly, I thought, I think people are experiencing these things and also not aware of the health registry. So that's just the health registry is not what our organization does, PSR, but because I'm aware of it and they're a partner organization, I just thought I would encourage people to do it.
So one quick question I had was the Act 13, that those provisions of Act 13 which gag doctors, didn't that get overturned?
It's overturned.
Yeah.
It is overturned.
Sure.
But the chilling, would you say the chilling effect on health professionals is still there?
Yeah, most people probably don't even know that was overturned.
Yeah.
Well, most of the health professionals don't know.
I would imagine they don't.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it, so why would they? Act 13 wouldn't come up because for years they've never talked about it. It's just don't talk about fracking.
It's sort of in the culture now. Yeah.
Especially in areas like this where, people need jobs. So their family members might work for the industry, or their neighbors do, or
Right.
it's become an integral part of the community.
Right.
That they don't want to. They don't want to bite the hand that feeds, I guess, in some ways. And they don't want to cause controversy because they just want to take care of their patients. Mm-hmm. They want to treat the illness that's in front of them, and it's not necessarily worrying about, what's causing it, what's coming downriver causing it. It's a different kind of nurturing and a different kind of care to just deal with what's in front of you. And I think that in a lot of cases, medical professionals are doing the best they can with what's in front of them. Mm-hmm. And treating the patient, and letting someone else deal with what's causing it. But if they're seeing it, we want them to speak out. Because if they're seeing it and not talking about it, it's, I think that there's a little bit more good that they can do.
So can we look at the website really quick, and maybe you can give me a little tour of the website, and or give the viewers a little tour. So what are some of the things that people can do here? What can they give me some pointers here?
So right now you're on the Environmental Health Project page,
Yep.
and so you see that's their main page, and there's all sorts of resources there. There's ones if you're like a resident, or if you are a healthcare professional, all sorts of resources you can go to. But the talk about, air quality, water quality, the health effects you're going to see. For health professionals, there is a medical toolkit. So, and that kind of helps guide you through if you have a patient coming in who is having certain symptoms. It's sort of like the questions you can ask to properly assess them. But if you want to look for the health registry, if you go back to the main page.
Go back to the main page?
To the main page.
Okay.
Right there. Okay, now below the photo there to the right, it says join our health registry, right up there.
Right here. This is the Join the Health Registry.
So click on that.
So this is for people, just anybody that thinks they might be impacted by fracking?
Yeah, or even if they think maybe they're not. Like if they live within 5 miles of any kind of activity and they want to fill that out, because the more people on there, the better picture you have of what's going on. And this page is very slow to load. So then you would create like your username, and there's all sorts of privacy steps you have to take, and then it will walk you through the registry.
Okay, here it came up, so let's go back to this. So returning user, remember me, forgot username. So this is a first-time user. So if I was a first-time user and I'm over 18, I have to select I'm over 18. Or for Colorado, it looks like over 21. I put in my email address. So this gets me started. And then once I register, then I can fill out an intake form of some kind? Or?
Yeah, it'll walk you through all of that.
Okay.
And the other interesting thing is that we'll tell you the data at this point, how you fit in with the larger picture.
Yeah.
So if you say if you say you're experiencing a symptom, it might say like 25% of the other people are too. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll get an instant.
After you answer it.
So do you have a rough idea of like how many, what's the data, how many people are in the database right now? Any idea?
I don't know. So we don't work for EHP. We work for PSR. So we're promoting this because I know the people in this area are telling me that they haven't used it, and I think it's great for for EHP and for researchers in general to have this bigger picture. But that's not. We're not like in that system. We're encouraging people to use it, but that's not what. We do. We don't work for EHP. So.
Right, got it. But
you can contact them, and I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you about.
Do you have is it 1,000 people? You think? Is it more or less?
I don't know.
Really. Okay.
I mean, like you said, it's multiple states.
Yeah.
So it's here, but it's also being used by other people.
It's still fairly new. I want to say it's not in the 1,000 range. It might be in the hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay.
That's just my best guess.
But your feeling is, from what you've seen, that this is, would you call this a public health crisis?
Fracking?
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you just interview people around, do you think they have any idea that this is a public health crisis? Or do you think that the gag orders on doctors and maybe industry public relations, control of the media, do you think all of that's sort of like keeping a lid on the level of impacts that the health impacts that people are encountering?
And the non-disclosure agreements. I think the non-disclosure agreements are, in my mind, they should be criminal. I understand that legally they're not, but there's so many people that are sick. There are so many people that have sick children, and they themselves are sick, and they're experiencing these health impacts, and they're unable to speak about it. And I think that is, it's not illegal, but it's unethical in my mind. It's at least unethical. It's to have people, to force them into silence.
Then they can't get the help that they need.
Incredible. So,
and they can't warn other people. That's the worst part, is that they can't speak out and say no. The asthma attacks that my child had, like before this, the experience they had before this and the experience that they've had since this is horrible. The difference is, it's changed our life. It's changed our lifestyle, or it's impacted the way we have to live. It's impacted our daily commute to school. It's impacted the sports that they're able to play, it's impacted their lives in such a way that I think that I would want, if this was going to come into my community, I would want the people that have already experienced it to be able to speak about it and explain the pulmonary issues that they're experiencing, the cardiac issues. These are hugely important things in your life, and for us to not be warned in the next community about what they're experiencing, the existing health impacts, is, it's unethical. I can't, it's hard for me to understand that it's legal, and all in the up and up, because it just seems so unethical to me. And for medical professionals, seeing this, I really would love for them to step up and say these impacts are real, and to not be afraid, I think.
So if there are scientific researchers that want access to this data that the Environmental Health Project is collecting, they would probably have to contact EHP directly for that. So what about PSR? So PSR is involved in more than just this project.
Right.
Talk about some of the other things that PSR. You mentioned nuclear power, non-proliferation,
and disarmament issues. So that's the national organization of PSR, and we're the Philadelphia chapter.
Pennsylvania chapter. So we've kind of created a Pennsylvania network of the folks in Pittsburgh that work, and Harrisburg, Hershey. So across the state, we're working on this issue, on environmental health issues, climate change, and locally in Philadelphia, we do restorative justice programs that are basically like violence prevention programs, specifically for youth. We don't in Philadelphia work on the nuclear disarmament issue, but it is something that a lot of us, including myself, have been involved with over the years and feel passionate about. It's just, in our city, it's not exactly the primary of all the violence issues. That's not really the issue that we're dealing with. However, over the years, it's been domestic violence and gun violence and other things that the city has dealt with. And at this point, Philadelphia Physicians for Social Responsibility focuses on violence prevention issues with youth.
If people wanted to contact either of you or I guess PSR in general, maybe would you be willing to help people navigate the EHP website, help them do their intake? I guess this is kind of what you're focusing on right now.
We can. We can guide them to it. In this community, I was feeling that there was a need for it. Mostly what we do is try to get medical professionals to speak out on the issue. So if they're seeing something and they want to say something about their community, if they want to reach out and maybe write a letter to the editor or an op-ed, or there's some kind of like a public hearing coming up and they would like some research to use as a resource for developing those points that they want to make in their opinion pieces. I'm happy to share the information. If you go on our website in the environmental health page, you can see an infographic that we created.
Okay, I have this graphic right up. Let's just talk about this really quick since it's up.
Okay.
This has the phone number and the email address for PSR Philly, and this was I just clicked on the contact page, and telephone number is 267-519-5299, right? That's PSR, and then info@PSR-Phila at PHILA.org. And then what were you asking me to look at?
At the environmental health page.
Environmental health, this one?
Yeah. I can't totally see your screen.
It says Fracking and Health, this one?
Yeah, so there's a link there at the top.
At the top?
Yeah, so those links are some of the information that we share in our outreach material.
Oh, that's a PDF. All right, these are all PDFs. Good.
Yeah, so you can print those out. I think I just handed you in the folder that you have. I don't know if you want to show folks. Yeah, so this has been really helpful for folks. We have a really more basic version that's just got like bullet points, but I don't know.
Yep. So
clear.
Yep.
So this is one of the PDFs that you can find. Do you want to talk about it?
Oh, it's just talking about the different. So on the back here this is a list of all the studies it's referencing. So like I said, there's been a lot of studies that have talked about the health effects of fracking, and then it's just got a visual to show you the different parts of the body it affects and the different things that the studies have been documenting. Such as showing low birth weights and mothers who live near fracking operations, increase in hospitalizations for people with asthma and that kind of thing.
Right. So children's health workers that are, working for the industry. The information is here. The research is on the back. One of the other PDFs is just a plain text. The same basic information, the same basic research is in here. And so these are things that, we can help break down some of this information for people. Some of the research is, complicated and it's in medical terms, so some people may or may not understand that.
It's more for medical professionals rather than lay people.
Right.
Okay.
So if lay people want to talk about it, or if medical professionals would like some help, taking that jargon and putting it into more simple terms, something that they can share. I think it's sometimes occasionally difficult for folks to take their technical knowledge and put it into layman's terms so that regular people can understand it outside of the field.
Yeah. Okay, so I think did we cover all the bases? Is there anything that I left out? Anything else you want to mention or talk about?
No?
Okay, great. Well, once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Bill Houston Podcast, and be sure to visit my YouTube channel, Bill Houston Podcast, and be sure to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Share this video with your friends. Okay, thanks very much, and we will see you next time.